what is going on? She's just deleted her Twitter. She's getting called out because it was exposed, because an interview got brought up.
The president of the Indiana Fever is in disarray after Caitlin Clark publicly criticized her. Fans are shocked by what transpired on live television. At this point, the criticism is growing and becoming worse every second.
I'm not joking when I say this. Something's gone weirdly wrong. Like, we literally hired a freaking Chronically Online GM.
But hold on, this is far more than a single press conference or popular video. Behind the scenes, a great deal more is going on. I also have all the details.
I have said before, and I will say it again, Stephanie White, Amber Cox, Kelly Crosscroft, the Indiana Fever president, they were not ready. Now, Christine Brennan in her book confirmed the WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not realize what they were about to get themselves into with drafting Caitlin Clark, because the popularity they weren't prepared for and didn't see coming.
Behind the scenes inside the Indiana Fever organization, things just got ugly. Additionally, Caitlin Clark supporters are making sure that it is acknowledged. The president of her own team is suddenly criticizing the rookie who has been selling out arenas and making every Fever game a national event. Yes, exactly. Fans were shocked by Kelly Crosscroft's utterly untrue remark. She stated, "We want the Fever to be like Apple," but the way it came across, it sounded like she was calling Caitlin the iPhone accessory instead of the iPhone itself. Discuss tone deafness. Let's face it, this club is only in the news because of Clark. She is the cause. National broadcasts are attending Fever games, shirts are flying off the shops, and ticket sales are rising. However, the front office seems more concerned with downplaying her importance than with admitting that. The fans weren't silent. Social media erupted, denouncing the comment as blatantly disrespectful. Crosscroft disappeared just as the tension began to rise. Her former account vanished in an instant. Nothing, no explanation, no apology. It seemed like a quiet confession of guilt, as if she believed that shutting down would put out the conflagration. However, that vessel has set sail. Both Caitlin Clark's followers and the internet never forget.
Yes, Stephanie White, every single solitary move that you make is going to be scrutinized. Welcome to it. Right here.
When someone disappears from social media during a controversy, you know the pressure is serious. Kelly Crosscroft, the president of the Indiana Fever, did just that after her now famous remark about Apple went viral online, and not in a positive way. Caitlin Clark supporters exploded on X as soon as the video began making the rounds, denouncing Crosscroft for attempting to minimize the WNBA's brightest star to a cliched business comparison. Clark is more than just one more component. She is the force behind the national buzz, ticket sales, and ratings. Fans weren't going to overlook that, either. Crosscroft's account had vanished entirely by Friday evening. No declaration, no explanation, no spin, simply gone. And that quiet said 1,000 words. This was more than a PR gaffe. For the very fan base that has supported this franchise through thick and thin, it seemed like a slap in the face. Longtime fans, season ticket buyers, and those who wore Fever gear during losing seasons now feel deceived by the one person who ought to be rooting for their best player. Even worse, the front office had been silent for weeks about Clark's treatment on the court, absorbing hits game after game as the officials turned a blind eye. Even the president of her own team is now unable to adequately recognize her influence without making it all about branding. The supporters were not duped, and their darkest suspicions, that the individuals leading this team simply don't understand, were only validated by Crosscroft's disappearing act. This is no longer merely poor PR. The Fever's front office just added fuel to the flames, and it's a full-blown crisis of confidence. Sophie Cunningham followed. However, before we discuss that, please click the like button if you believe Caitlin Clark is the target of harassment. If you believe the referees are only acting as though they are unaware of what is taking place, please share your thoughts in the comment section. Naturally, don't forget to subscribe, as this drama is only getting more intense.
As a ref, I know I would mess up all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that your job is easy, but when it is a simple call right in front of your face multiple times, what are you doing?
Being San Francisco tomorrow, you're on the Las Vegas Strip. What can the Las Vegas expect from Sophie?
Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna be me. I don't go in there trying to predetermine anything. I'm dialed in. I need to focus on hitting my shots, making sure I'm executing the schemes right. I'm not focused on the extracurricular activities. And you know what? During that, it was just part of the game. I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a build-up for a couple of years now of them just not protecting, the star player of the WNBA. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do. And I'm a team player, so.
It's evident that Sophie Cunningham isn't here to play games. You'll regret it if you call her the unofficial vice president of Try That on Our Court or Caitlin Clark's enforcer, since she just set the league on fire. Sophie went off on the first edition of her podcast, Show Me Something. Pure emotional honesty without any censorship or holding back, more akin to a Netflix tell than a sports podcast. And her deadly message. She wasn't only targeting rivals. She addressed everyone dismissing Caitlin Clark's WNBA influence. You're literally dumb, she said. 3 times, not once or twice. And the internet exploded. That video quickly went viral on TikTok, as well as YouTube. Sophie understood just how to make it memorable, and it's this week's quote. Don't get it wrong, though. She is a living example. Not long ago, Sophie leveled a Connecticut Sun player after Clark elbowed him in the face. This is the same Sophie. She didn't care that she was kicked out of the game. I protect my teammates, she said. Period. However, it doesn't end there. Sophie wasn't merely criticizing opponents or incompetent referees. She attacked the Indiana Fever, her own team. She claims that opposition teams aren't the only ones who have been disparaging Caitlin. It originates in the locker room of the Fever. The team's close associates say her. The podcast resembled a full-scale declaration of war. Fans have been feeling the stress. It's real, not just in their imaginations. The conflict between viral sensations like Clark and WNBA veterans is not limited to the league. Inside Indiana, things are boiling over. And Sophie isn't going to back down. She doesn't mince words. She is here to expose it. And if that means blowing everything up to keep Caitlin safe and change the society, then so be it.
It was an intentional foul and it was meant to send a message. It turned into a scuffle and I don't think anybody wanted that. But the way that the game went and how egregious the referees were and how they were not protecting players, and they especially weren't protecting the #1 player in this league, the biggest draw in this league, which is Caitlin Clark, and they continue to not do that. To me, this was not a dirty play. This was making a statement because the referees didn't do their damn job. This would not have happened at the end of the game if the referees did their job during the first play. If the referees did their job, not just the first play, every single play leading up to that. If the referees had control of the game, that is their only job. The referees' first job, their #1 job, is to protect their players.
I get it to a certain extent, and every rookie coming into the league, that's how you're going to treat them. But there's just more for her.
Let's just call it that. There are people out there that are targeting Caitlin Clark. She's catching fingers to her face, taking elbows, and having her body examined. The referees were also quiet. The whistles would go off non-stop if someone had touched LeBron or Steph Curry in that manner in the NBA. Suspensions, technical fouls, and the entire circus of the media. Clark, however, is slammed in the WNBA, and the officials just ignore it. Simply go back to May 24th. The New York Liberty versus the Indiana Fever. In a close 2-point game, Natasha Cloud drops her shoulder and collides with Clark as she is driving. Direct interaction in front of the referees, and they only gaze. Seriously. Clark stood there, astonished, hands out, without a call or explanation. The last buzzer goes off. Liberty leaves with a victory and a strong message. Sophie Cunningham refused to accept it. She turned on the microphone once more and called it as she deems fit. She's not mistaken. There's simply more for her. At this point, the double standard is blatant. Physical defense is not what this is. Open season pandemonium is here. Even if some players may not express it in public, there's a code of silence that goes something like, make her prove it, which actually means beating her down before she takes over. However, Caitlin Clark didn't sign up to be a target for abuse. She arrived to seize control of the league. Sophie intervenes when the referees ignore her. in, hurling bombs on the microphone and hits on the court as if it were her own goal. This is no longer only poor officiating. There is an unsettling pattern. To be honest, it appears that something more significant is happening. A system and a configuration that are working against her. And as anyone who has been following along knows, there is much more to this story than just basketball. Do not simply observe, then. Remain locked in. Like, comment, and subscribe because the next shocking turn of events is about to happen.
That we want to sustain the growth and the interest level in the franchise. I mean, this is about the Indiana Fever. Yes, we have a foundational player in Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston, and we're going to continue to add to that. But I want this team to be the leader in the country, and a brand, an enduring brand, like Apple or something. I mean, we have a real opportunity.
There's a significant problem going on behind the scenes in Indiana, and it goes beyond locker room tension and gossip. This has escalated into a full-fledged internal conflict. On the one hand, the executives are attempting to transform the Fever into a streamlined, hygienic, and brand-friendly operation. Imagine the atmosphere of an Apple store. Players, supporters, and even opposition coaches, on the other hand, see it for what it is. The brand is Caitlin Clark. For a period. However, this is when things became chilly. Fever. It was President Kristen Bernard, not Kelly Krakow, who made the decision to publicly minimize Clark's impact. At that point, things took a drastic turn. Sophie Cunningham came along and did more than simply push back. She set the entire corporation on fire. And don't be misled, that outburst on the podcast wasn't spontaneous. According to sources, it was a calculated and direct strategic response to the president's remarks. Sophie didn't merely criticize or disparage the WNBA. She produced the receipts and called out her own front office right away. That goes beyond simple annoyance. That is a complete uprising. She revealed a franchise experiencing an identity crisis. The Fever seem as though they don't even acknowledge the superstar that is already on their squad, despite their stated goal of creating a dynasty. They are treating Caitlin like a liability rather than supporting her. The team as a whole now feels split. While some people really believe that Clark should be the franchise's face, others are unwilling to abandon outdated authority structures. Here's the problem, though. It is seen by fans. Sophie notices. Additionally, Bernard notices anything that might be revealed by that strangely disappeared ex's once Twitter account. Let's be honest. This is no longer solely about basketball.
What the WNBA is doing with Caitlin Clark is the equivalent of the NBA doing this to Michael Jordan in 1986. It just doesn't make sense to me. You are biting the hand that feeds you. Mind you, without Caitlin Clark,
social media would go crazy if LeBron James was thrown to the ground after taking a poke to the eye. ESPN would broadcast it continuously. However, Caitlin Clark receives vicious blows without any rude language, silence, whistling, or fury. Imagine now if Steph Curry is hacked in every game with no defense. Would the NBA simply do nothing? No way. However, Caitlin Clark is experiencing precisely that. She isn't your typical rookie. She is the cause of the current explosion in women's basketball. Everything is focused on her, including the sold-out stadiums and the attendance records. The league's momentum is fueled by Clark. Additionally, she seems to be treated as an afterthought in some way. Sophie Cunningham was forthright. She categorically referred to it as inappropriate. Even the social media would go crazy if LeBron James was thrown to the ground after taking a poke to the eye. ESPN would broadcast it continuously. However, Caitlin Clark receives vicious blows without any rude language, silence, whistling, or fury. Imagine now if Steph Curry is hacked in every game with no defense. Would the NBA simply do nothing? No way. However, Caitlin Clark is experiencing precisely that. She isn't your typical rookie. She is the cause of the current explosion in women's basketball. Everything is focused on her, including the sold-out stadiums and the attendance records. The league's momentum is fueled by Clark. Additionally, she seems to be treated as an afterthought in some way. Sophie Cunningham was forthright. She categorically referred to it as unsuitable. They are mired in the past, including the coach. Additionally, they run the risk of wasting a once-in-a-generation opportunity. This isn't merely a trendy subject. This marks a sea change. The finest way to put it was by Sophie Cunningham. Either you and Clark are writing together, or you have no idea what you're doing. And just wait if you thought this was crazy. Everything could be revealed by what comes next. Because this storm is just getting started, please hit the bell, subscribe button, and leave a comment indicating which side you support.